You guys ever hear about Warren G. Harding? He's the president of the United States of America right after World War I. In World War I, everybody's very upset because we thought the world was getting better and everybody had these fanciful notions of heroism and bravery. And we are going to go off to fight to the Hun and to defend what is right. And probably we did that in World War I. It's great and all. But the point is, all of those noble feelings, they died in the trenches along with all of those boys. It was a horrible war, as bad as anything ever was. And kind of quietly after World War I, everybody's like, dang, I thought all of our technology would make us like each other more. And we'd use it to maybe make like jetpacks and flying rose gardens and stuff. But it seems like instead, we're making like chemicals that can burn people's lungs from the inside out and guns that fire bullets even more faster than the guns we used to have. I'm not sure this is going to work out. Well, then enter Warren G. Harding, who's like, hey, you know what? A vote for me is a vote for a return to normalcy. And I think he meant normality, but politicians make gaffes. I make gaffes, whatever. So it kind of hung on him a little bit, sort of a joke. He's the normalcy guy. And normalcy turns out to mean, let's just forget what happened in the trenches and Europe. And let's have the ladies cut their hair short and wear little dresses that by today's standards are unbelievably modest. But back then were super racy. And let's have them shake their hips and do little provocative Charleston dances. And we'll all drink illegal beer and we'll just forget there was ever a World War I and everything will be great forever. And that was the Harding administration. That's what he oversaw. Well, Harding was the same way. So rather than hiring competent people, he's like, I'm a good old boy. I'm going to hire the good old boys. I'm going to bring my buddies from school. We'll have smoking jackets and we'll laugh about things that are inappropriate to laugh about instead of governing. So he brings them all in and they do just that. None of them know how to do any of the stuff I don't think that they're actually appointed to do in the cabinet. But what they do know how to do is to use their proximity to power to make themselves unbelievably rich while they are in office. Have you ever looked at the numbers of how much richer our representatives at the national level and our senators at the national level become after they gain office? I don't know where the money comes from. It just kind of materializes. They bet right on all the stocks all of a sudden. It's like they know where everything's going in advance. It's just absolutely uncanny how they all become rich. Well, at any rate, one of Harding's guys, the Secretary of the Interior, Albert Fall, he cooks up some no-bid contract deal to lease out some Navy oil reserves in rural Wyoming, up by where I used to live, to some of his buddies who have an oil company. And they give him massive kickbacks under the table. And Albert Fall becomes rich. And Harding's got a lady on the side in the White House and maybe a love child. And so he's distracted. And then he finds out about it from a journalist. And Harding shoots off his mouth about his darned friends and how they're getting him over a barrel, getting him in trouble. And then Harding, I think he goes on a boat cruise, right? Up to Alaska. I think that's right. And he took his Surgeon General along with him and he had some kind of health event up there. But his Surgeon General, if I recall correctly, he didn't really know how to surgeon or general or anything at all. He was just some guy, like a drinking buddy or something. And so the Surgeon General botched whatever care he delivered to Harding. And I think Harding just died on that boat trip. It was pretty much the biggest scandal in, like 100 years. And then you got Nixon and all of that stuff. And now there are just so many scandals, you can't even keep track of them. And stuff is in need of reform, to put it lightly. I mean, it's kind of funny, right? That this scandal I'm telling you about from 100 years ago is alarming because now probably most of you are like, what? That'd be great if that were the worst scandal that happened in a year in our country or this other country where you live. Whatever. I don't know. Times have changed. And you will notice that I picked an example from 100 years ago once again because I didn't want any of you who still believe that your teams like you and care about you are like, hey, wait a minute. Why'd you criticize my team for doing that? What about the other team? No, it's just, look, my friends, politicians just get rich when they get power. It just happens all the time. Fact of life. It's not new. It's been going on forever. And I'm sure it has to do with the ability to control the narrative and to control the army and to control everything. And so in the ancient world, with guys like Haman, who we're reading about in Esther chapter 3, they just had unbelievable access to power and no democratic public accountability whatsoever. And the way they would get rich is they would work their way into the trust of the king, and then they would be granted a governorship. That's a really good thing. In the Roman Empire, Julius Caesar really came into prominence when he finally landed that governorship. Once he had Gaul, he was a really big deal, not Gaul like the attribute, but Gaul like France. He became a really big deal, unbelievably rich. Why? Well, whether you're talking about Rome or you're talking about Persia, if you get a governorship, you can levy taxes. You can also carry out judgment against people who are accused. So if somebody gets a little too uppity and they're super rich, well, just have them run afoul of the law, find them guilty, and then for the good of the realm, just confiscate all of their stuff. There were all kinds of ways to get rich, and there was nothing anybody could do about it. So the thing to do is just put your head down and hope that the nobleman either comes to favor you as one of his stool pigeons, or that he just doesn't notice you and he takes it out on somebody else. So no doubt by the time we get to Esther chapter 3, Haman is loaded, crazy rich, and that is made evident by the amount of money that he is going to offer to just throw into the royal treasury of Xerxes, if Xerxes will let him just off a people group without really asking any questions or following up on it. And, well, it goes like this. We read it yesterday. We're going to read it again. Esther 3, verse 6. Then Haman said to King Xerxes, "Hey, there's a certain people dispersed and scattered among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom, whose customs are different from those of all the other people, and who don't obey the king's laws. It is not in the king's best interest to tolerate them. So if it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them, and I'll put 10,000 talents of silver in the royal treasury for the men who carry out the business." So the king took his signet ring from his finger and gave it to Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. "Keep the money," the king said to Haman, "and do with the people as you please." Wow, that was easy. But it's interesting, isn't it, that Haman isn't sure he can win the argument simply on, they're bad, they might be a threat, I really, really promise. I've been right about other things before when I held lesser positions. So on my word, you should probably just kill him. So when he's given the whole little speech that he's no doubt gone over 100 times in his head, no doubt he saved it for a time when Xerxes would be in a good mood, catch him at the right moment. At the end, he's also got the but I mean, also here's 10,000 talents of silver, and everybody likes money. Now, that's a really interesting play because it kind of hints that 10,000 talents of silver would be something that Haman, who's intimately familiar with Xerxes' finances, kind of hints that Haman thinks Xerxes could use a little bit of jingle right now. Now, this isn't a little bit of jingle. I was over here scratching it out on a sheet of paper before I got started. And based on the Babylonian weight of a talent of silver, we're looking at about $25,000 per talent. And let me see, 25,000 times 10,000, that's 7 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what are we talking? I mean, wow, we're talking about $250 million. Wait, did I do that wrong? No, I think it's $250 million, the equivalent of what that would be right now. Xerxes had clearly drained the coffers on the whole affair in Greece. Looks like he still hadn't fully recovered from that financially here, apparently. We know he went and took on huge building projects. We have literal inscriptions from the interim between the time he marries Esther and the time that all of this stuff in Esther 3 is happening. We got a literal inscription saying, "I'm Xerxes, I'm the son of Darius. I built up Susa, I fixed up my dad's stuff." That is crazy expensive. We can estimate those amounts just by looking at the sheer footprint of the Apadana, the capital palace complex there in Susa. So dude probably was a little bit over a barrel. But here's the deal. It's one thing for some dirty, scabby politician to do the normal things that politicians do and enrich themselves. I'm sure there's a good politician somewhere. I'm sorry if you have a family member who's in politics or there's one that you believe in, whatever, that's cool. I'm sure it could exist. Generally speaking, he isn't acting like just your regular middling to low character politician who just enriches themselves, mostly leaves people alone and then goes away. He's vindictive. He's taken the money that he extracted from the people of Persia, and he is so mad at the Jews and at Mordecai for not being bowed to that he's willing to throw $250 million at that problem. I mean, I've been pretty offended by some stuff before. Some people have been very rude to me. There have been some YouTube comments that I did not like very much, but I don't think I've ever been $250 million offended before. This is crazy. Dude really, really wants it. And he's willing to put his ill-gotten gained money where his mouth is. And maybe that was persuasive to the king. He's willing to throw $250 million of his own money at it. I mean, we probably better kill this people group. I mean, he really means it. He really thinks this would be best. Okay, all right, here's the ring, whatever. I mean, go do it. You can keep the money, though. I'm fine. Crazy situation, above and beyond the normal levels of skeezy political corruption and right into downright pure evil. And the kind of evil where somebody's even like, I'm willing to spend money to make my evil happen. I really want this to occur. And it is after this exchange that Haman gets a new title. He's still the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, but now the title, the enemy of the Jews, is tagged onto his name forebodingly as well. All right, I got to remind everybody who supports the program in any way at Patreon or through Planning Center, through the website, any of that stuff. I think everybody who supports through not Patreon, we've sent you an email at this point. Everybody who's on Patreon, I did a big post over there. Please go check it out. We've got an announcement for a thing that is going to be limited in capacity that is coming up here. I'm going to be talking about it later this week. I want to give you first crack at it, so please make sure to go and check out that post or check your inbox. And for everybody else, thank you so much for being here. And I've got a cool announcement coming up later this week once again, so I'll let you know what that is about very soon. I appreciate you all so much. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.